On the broadcast here tonight from the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, where 40 years ago a bullet ended the life of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The candidates, our conversation here tonight with all three candidates in the race for president. We'll talk about Dr. King, civil rights, and where we go from here. Also, tax returns. The Clintons have finally made theirs public. American jobs. The bad news today that tens of thousands of jobs have vanished. And the MLK legacy, the room where he spent his last night, and the American company that's bringing its workers back in time by bringing them here. A special edition of Nightly News begins now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening. It happened here. It was exactly 40 years ago tonight. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stepped from room 306 onto the balcony of the Lorraine Motel behind us here in Memphis. That night, he was getting ready to go to a friend's home for dinner. He was here to help organize a strike by this city's sanitation workers. He was shot and killed by a single shot from a hunting rifle. It was fired from the window of a boarding house just 200 feet away. Here in Memphis today, there have been speeches and a vigil going on behind us. Earlier, thousands of people came together to honor and remember Dr. King, including those who are now sanitation workers in this city. They marched in a steady rain from their headquarters downtown to where we are right now. And in Atlanta, members of the King family placed a wreath at the National Historic Site where Dr. King and his late wife, Coretta Scott King, are buried. On this broadcast tonight, our conversations with all three candidates for president, talking with us about that day and this day, about Dr. King and the state of this nation. Two of the three are here today. Senator McCain spent the day in Memphis. He spoke here today, as did Senator Clinton, while Senator Obama campaigned in the Midwest and said Dr. King's dream is unfinished. And so without delay, before we get to the other news of this day, let's begin with Senator John McCain, the presumptive GOP nominee. Senator, you're very kind to join us, first of all. For people who don't know your story, where were you 40 years ago tonight? Where, how, and when did you hear that he had died?
Well, thank you, Brian. I was in a prison cell by myself in Hanoi, North Vietnam, and every morning, every evening, they would play a propaganda program, and it was broadcast over that, I believe, the next evening, and we were told about the tragic death that took place. And I think they told us all the bad news, none of the good news, and I think they knew that that would hurt our morale and make us worry a great deal about our country, and they were right.
What did you gain coming here today? I noticed you were very well received when you spoke to this crowd this morning.
Well, I gained, again, an additional appreciation for a scene of triumph, a scene of sorrow, and a scene where a great crime was committed. And all of those lumped together, I think the lesson is we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go.
You're proud of the fact that often, if you detect a mistake in your public life, you've tried to apologize. You brought an apology here today for once having voted against the MLK holiday. What was your justification then, and what did you tell the crowd today as far as how you changed your mind?
Well, it was based on the belief that we had too many holidays or it was too expensive or something, but the fact is it was wrong, and I was proud to have the opportunity to fight hard for the recognition of Dr. King's birthday in my own state. But it was wrong.
People here are concerned that we'll all go home and the lights will be turned out, and it will have been the 40th anniversary, but how to enforce a lasting message? Any ideas on that front?
The lasting message is we should be humbled by his example. We should be inspired by it. And we have a long way to go, especially in the area of education. We really have a dual system in American education. We should honor his memory, but we should be motivated to move forward and truly complete the mission of ensuring equality for all people in this country, and no one should be judged by the color of their skin, as Dr. King once instructed us.
And if someday it's President McCain, is that the message you'll enforce?
Absolutely, absolutely. We should be a nation that is committed to the Founding Fathers' belief that all of us are created equal. I'm committed to that, and I'll go all over this country giving that message.
Senator, thank you for being with us at the top of the broadcast tonight. Here in Memphis, Senator John McCain, as the remembrances go on behind us here. As we said, Senator Hillary Clinton is also here tonight. Our conversation with her in just a moment. But first, earlier today, Senator Clinton spoke at the church where Dr. King delivered what would turn out to be his final sermon that night before. Senator Clinton remembered that 40 years ago, she was a student at Wellesley College when she heard of Dr. King's murder.
I was a junior in college. And I remember hearing about it and just feeling such despair. I walked into my dorm room and took my book bag and hurled it across the room. It felt like everything had been shattered. Like we would never be able to put the pieces together again.
Not long after that speech, late this afternoon here in Memphis, on this very spot, in fact, we spoke to Senator Clinton. Senator, first of all, this is almost a national talisman. Talk about the emotional impact this place, having seen all those black and white pictures when we were younger, this place has on you.
Well, it has an incredible impact on me. I had met him as a young woman when I was 14, and it really opened my life. Even as we look out at where we are in our country today with all the unfinished business of poverty and economic challenges and a war that we need to end, it is so reminiscent of what he was talking about when he died, and we have to honor that.
Do you see the glass as half empty or half full? As they said during the Constitutional Convention, is the sun rising or setting where race as a topic in this country is concerned?
I believe the sun is rising. I believe the glass is half full. But whether you fill it to the top or the sun actually makes it into the sky without being obscured by clouds and storms is really up to us. It is not only up to those of us in public life, it is up to each of us in our personal life.
How can you become the leading voice for matters of race, for fulfilling Dr. King's dream, with an African American also in the race, or does it matter whose voice is the leading voice as long as there's progress on this subject?
I think there are so many leading voices, and I am here as a beneficiary of Dr. King. The Voting Rights Act helped me as well as helped those who were waiting in line to vote and being turned away in so many places across the South. I was a young person when we reformed and amended the Constitution so that you could vote at the age of 18. So the emphasis on empowerment and participation that was at the core of the civil rights movement has benefited me and every American, whether we know it or not.
Final question. It's been theorized that not having a national conversation on race was perhaps one of the missing elements of your husband's presidency. Can you pledge yourself to a national conversation on race?
Well, Brian, I believe that we have to continue it. It is an ongoing conversation. It should never end. And we not only need to talk about race, we need to talk about gender. We need to talk about religion. We need to talk about the full range of the categories in which we are often placed by ourselves and by those who look at us. I think for me as a white woman, Dr. King was a category breaker. He was reaching across all of those divides. And as president, that's what I want to be as well. Here at home and around the world, we've got to find ways for us to connect with each other's common humanity.